You guys having a good time tonight? Any first-timers here? Raise your hand so I know who not to talk to. All right, first-timer, 1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome. Nice to have you all here. My name's Billy. Bill for short, Bill for long, nothing more, nothing less. We're going to go over some executor things, and that has to do with estates. And it's... If you guys don't understand that yet, we can get into it a little bit after the meeting, just a little bit so you understand. So I don't want to lose you. But a few years ago, approximately on your birth date, there was a death. Your birth certificate is the proof of that death. Anything spelled in all capital letters name, if you look up definitions into the U.S. Code, it says that it is a deceased or a vessel. It can be any of those things, or a corporation. The word corporation, we know, comes from the word corpse, which means a dead thing. So as we learn these terminologies and what they really mean and how they apply to our lives, it's really great to understand the word executor. Now, I like to call it an executor because they execute things. They execute plans. They execute problems, and I'm just going to go on a little bit about this and read it to you so you understand. And if you are a secured party creditor or a principal, this is really good information so that you understand how we're supposed to conduct ourselves. It says, it's both an honor and a burden to serve as someone's executor, as an executor is entrusted with responsibility for winding up someone's earthly affairs. A big or little task depending on the situation. Essentially, an executor is charged with protecting a deceased person's property until all debts and taxes have been paid, and seeing that what's left is transferred to the people who are entitled to it. The law does not require an executor, also called a personal representative, to be a legal or financial expert, but it does require the highest degree of honesty, impartiality, and diligence. This is called the fiduciary duty. The duty to act with scrupulous good faith and honesty on behalf of someone else. Executors have a number of duties, depending on the complexity of the deceased person's financial and family circumstances. Typically, an executor must, and I'm just going to go over the all bold things here, find the deceased person's assets and manage them until they are distributed to inheritors. Decide whether or not probate court proceedings are needed. Figure out who inherits property. File the will in the local probate court. Handle day-to-day details. Set up an estate bank account. Use estate funds to pay continuing expenses, pay debts, pay taxes, and supervise the distribution of the deceased person's property. That sounds very boring, doesn't it? I mean, it's just kind of a bummer. But what if, for entertainment purposes only, we were talking about your legal entity? Your name in all capital letters is an entity. Some refer to a trust. So if that legal entity died at birth, and you've been walking along not understanding that there is a large fortune there for you to take care of all the issues that we just talked about, wouldn't that be great if you were the executor?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say we read this again with that in context. I find out that the heir to all of this wealth, because I was born in America, has been given to a trustee that may fall under a heading of U.S., and they have been acting as the executor because I'm not old enough to understand all that. Let's say I'm a juvenile delinquent, like they call me in Title 18, because I haven't stepped up to the plate and said, hey, I'm the executor, and I'm going to do some things here to show that. Let's say I revoke power of attorney, and I appoint myself as the settler. Doesn't that sound good? And now I'm going to settle all the things that are required, and I'm going to do them with honesty, impartiality, and diligence. So the first thing I want to do is I want to notify the Social Security Administration that the guy that they're representing died. And now I need to notify maybe some alphabet companies, corporations that are saying that there's some debt owed to, maybe taxes. So I would open up an account so that I could affect payment to all those entities. Does that make sense? This is exciting stuff because the accounts are real and the players are all real and the actors are real in their real matrix. So now if we pay off all the taxes in, let's say, an executor situation where there was a trust and the person died, that would be the testator. Okay, so the testator is gone, and we need to settle up. Because as soon as we get all the taxes paid and we get all the debt paid, now there's some extra things that we need to do. We need to find out who the beneficiaries are. I like that, because I would like to be the beneficiary. And as the executor, we get to appoint that. Now, if we figure out that the dead guy, the testator, has some property, we'll be able to claim that too. Now, has anybody ever heard of a property list attachment A? Raise your hand. Oh, there's a lot of us out here. So we already know what the property is. Giggle, giggle. We also need to notify the probate court. Now, that's going to be real easy because all the courts in this government, corporate venue, are probate courts. Every one of them. Now, that's really good news because we don't have to go looking for one. They're all there. Now, you might get a notice every once in a while. It's an offer to pay some taxes at, say, a traffic place or a magistrate place. All those things are already in place for us to go present that we are the executor for the trust and we want to settle up. Now, there's 10 rules of commerce. I've talked about this a bunch. You can buy it online if you pull up the Google and search for it, 10 rules of commerce. There are a few copies floating around in this building I know of if you want to borrow it and watch it. But the first rule of commerce is that you cannot control that which you did not create. Second rule is you can only control that which you create. The third rule, this is really cool. Are you liking this, Brad? This is really good stuff. It's so simple. And they give us manuals called executor manuals so that you can understand how to handle your estate. The third rule is that you cannot interfere with commerce. And I'm getting real close to it right now. So I'm going to be real careful that I don't interfere with commerce with anyone in here that may be a U.S. citizen. Because if you want to be a U.S. citizen, we're all for that. That's great. There's a whole bunch of us in here that are not U.S. citizens. I don't want to get too far out of the line there. But an MSO is a title. Everybody here gave up title to something along the way. If you have a driver's license, you gave up title to travel. If you have a license plate on the back of your car, you turned it into a vehicle when you did that. And you gave up title. And by giving up title, you give up the rights and the profits from that for a benefit and privilege. So the thing that scares a lot of people is they get really depressed about all this and say, well, I gave up everything. How do I get it back? So I did another word study. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about regaining title. Okay, let's show you what a title really looks like. This says a certificate of live birth. That was printed up at the hospital, and they send it off. It's a little card, and they make it smaller so that it fits really nice on top of a securities instrument. A securities instrument, you can tell is a securities instrument because it has this really nice border around the outside edge. At the very bottom of this one, does it have a bond company? At the bottom of my birth certificate, they hid it in the scroll, that really nice border that has all the fancy penmanship, all that stuff. Mine is hid in there. In fact, I got one from the county, and I got one from the state, and they bonded it through two different securities companies. corporations. One of them was American Bond and Note Company, and the other one was a Midwest Bank and Note Company. So just for fun, I looked at an old one, and it says Pacific Bond Company. So there's a guy named D, and I think his middle initial is T, and his last name is Cece. So that's the guy that's got your stuff. Yeah, DTCC. And you can do that all with capital letters and Google it, and you can see where DTCC lives. It's an international entity. It's pretty neat when you guys want to really get into this and understand who you are and what they've done for us. Now, I got to tell you, they've done a great job in some aspects of providing some serious funding and benefits because of this certificate. Can you see? That's a routing number. That's one of the presidents right there that set up all this corporate stuff. Do you guys know that in 1760 they had way more knowledge? The average family had way more knowledge about corporate law, contract law, and trust law than even some of the best paid attorneys today have. When they came to America, they came here for freedom, and they came here to retain titles. They didn't want anybody telling them that they couldn't speed on their horse because they had the title to their horse. They had a brand on it. They didn't want to be told that they couldn't plant crops in their yard or have a certain color paint on their house. They came here for freedom. But they came here for respect for each other. So if old George Washington wanted to paint his barn yellow, I'd let him. And I would uphold his right to have a yellow barn instead of complain about it and go to the, what are those HOAs, Homeowners Association, and complain about it and try and get his yellow paint removed. There's a big responsibility to have that kind of authority, and there's also a big responsibility to uphold someone else's authority. So I'm just touched on that for a minute. Titles. Now, the executor, I looked up some words to go with executor. This is what the noun says. You got it? It says the person appointed to administer the estate of a person. Does anybody know what person means? Say it.
Corporation.
Corporation. Who has died, leaving a will, and that means like my will. My will to be here tonight, I was here. His will is to eat shrimp. So he has a will. That's what we mean by when we say will. Which nominates, I like the word nominate. I nominate me to be wealthy. Second it? My wife gave me a second. All opposed? Nobody opposed? The ayes have it. Unless there is a valid objection, the judge will appoint the person named in the will to be the executor. Now here's what's crazy. If nobody appoints an executor to an estate, the state appoints one for you. Now, a lot of times that could be, say, an attorney. It could be prosecuting attorney. It could be the judge. It could actually be the clerk of the court. It's kind of like hide the pea under the shell game. When you get there, you go, what's going on? Hey, what's going on? Hey, I'm a sovereign. I have rights. I have this. I have that. Really? Where's your executor?